Well, hello and welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Your Blank What Now podcast. My name is Marcy Nettles, and I am your host. And I am honored to be able to bring you amazing stories of people just like you that have gone through really difficult times in their lives, but they made a decision not to stay there. They did something different and they broke through. So I know that these stories can be great examples and inspiration to you as you're listening. And today, our guest is oh my gosh, he's amazing. And he is quite the overcomer. Overcomer. So, Ethan A. Poetic is a native of Coatesville, Pennsylvania, moving to Lancaster in the middle of his eighth grade year. On Saturday, March 19th, 2011, he was involved in a serious, near fatal car accident with a tractor trailer 18 wheeler, where he was given a 99% chance of death. Ethan graduated from J.P. McCaskey High School, Harrisburg Area Community College with an associate's degree, and Minersville University with a bachelor's degree in speech communications, minor broadcasting, and media. He received 2 Pennsylvania Commonwealth citations, a proclamation declaration citation from the Lancaster City Mayor and Council members. Ethan was featured in several newspaper articles, in TV shows, on the radio, and honored with the Award of Excellences at the State Capitol Complex of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Ethan is the CEO and founder of Ethan A. Poetic, LLC, to empower people towards overcoming their adversities and hardships. He's currently a keynote speaker, life coach, walking, living miracle, 2-time college graduate, and a self-published author of his autobiography titled The Inspirational Story of Ethan A. Poetic, Chronicles of Adversities, Education, Sports, Relationships, and Resiliency. He's a former member of the International Lions Club, and he has helped bridge the gaps to inspire the youth inside the classroom, cafe, playgrounds, sports, music, and after school programs, and in community engagement. He sees himself inside the youth, relating to their struggles of poverty, single parent households, and needing leadership towards the right direction in life. Ethan does lead by true example, for exemplifying in his life the outstanding progress of diversity and inclusion. Can you believe that that's you, Ethan? I just want to welcome you to the show today. How are you?
I'm doing good. That was quite the intro. I never heard an intro like that before. You really did a rundown.
Well, I
Uh,
want people to know who they're going to be listening to and why they should listen to you. You've been through some stuff and you've done some stuff.
yeah, I've been through so much except eating pound cake, but I say that jokingly. But but all jokes aside, I have been through a lot, but I overcame a lot. And look at me now. Just success story, not a statistic.
Amen. Amen. I would say you are a miracle for sure. So, together we decided that the title of your episode would be You're Left with a 99% Chance of Death. What now? And I cannot wait to get into this story because it is truly a miracle and just something that we don't hear very often. But before we get into that aspect of your story, would you please share with the What Now tribe more of who you are and what life was like for you prior to March 19th, 2011?
As you said before, single parent household. It was 5 of us. We were in poverty. Our mom was working. And it was just men that weren't consistent. My mom played a role in it as well. And it's just a situation where I had 3 other siblings that lived in 2 other households. For the first years of my life, I didn't, 2 of them didn't even know I was born until I talk about it in my book where I see someone that looks similar to me driving in this green coupe car slowly in my neighborhood and pulling up into my aunt's driveway. And then that's when I found out I had a brother that lived so far away. And then he tells his mom, I have a brother. And then he tells our sister. And that became the start of a relationship that was like weird, but still made it work in a way. But moving forward, I played sports, which helped me cope with life, be around positive men who are educated and giving back to the community, and sometimes leaving their hearts on their sleeves because their wives allowed them to invest in the kids who became student athletes. And I ended up becoming one of those productive member societies, and it became a situation where they became very proud. When I did graduate from college, even though I'm fast forward, but we'll get back to the beginning. I went to the football practices, basketball practices, wrestling practices, and track practices to take pictures with my coaches as a way of paying forward because during COVID-19, there was a limited number of people that can be at Millersville University for the big commencement ceremony. So I was only awarded like 2 to 4 tickets, and Jordan Steffi was one of the people who showed up. Also, Arhai Dewap, who played as a father figure, as a next door neighbor. But yeah, but seriously, I was growing up in Coatesville, and it was just a journey of just understanding. Like, I look back, how did I go through all the struggles? Yeah, I'm this athletic. I'm filled with potential. Both my grandparents said I'm born with greatness, and one believed I have greatness. But it also really goes down to parenting, what type of foundation they had with communication. Do they get along? Who's willing to compromise? In my situation, my parents were never together because my dad was already with a whole nother woman before he met my mom, and my mom was just basically, not trying to put somebody down. I gotta tell it like it is, the side woman or just a woman that he had a fling with. And well, here I am, born on a hot sunny day at Brandywine Hospital, and I was named after this guy named Ethan Trowery.
Okay. You have so many important things that you just shared with us. I mean, first of all, you did have a lot of difficulties in your childhood, and yet you've never let that keep you down. You always wanted to live your life and, like you said, become that productive part of society. And you did. And I think it really says a lot to how we talk about it takes a community or a tribe of people to raise a child. It really does, especially when you have a single mama that's got several kids and just, needs help. And so turning to those people in the athletics departments and in the gyms and different places and your neighbor even to be that father figure. I'm so grateful that you had those people in your life.
Yeah, it was just when it came to on high, just that was part of the transition to moving to Lancaster. We would always play the games together, whether it be video games, games in person, talking. And one day he smelled me cook. He smelled my food. So I had the windows open, and he came home from work, and his wife wasn't home cooking for him. He said, "Can you make me a plate?" I made him a plate, and the key to a man's heart's to his stomach. And I guess that became the beginning of a new adventure. And then one day over time, he told me I'm like a son and that became like a prophecy. That became like a word of affirmation, and I accepted, and his wife accepted it, and it just became the beginning of an evolved relationship.
Oh, how important was that to you? I can only imagine not having your own father in your life and having someone else that wants to take you in like a son.
I, it's like when you be around dysfunction so long, it becomes normal. That's how it felt to me. But then I also saw how, here I am after a football game, a track meet, or the sporting event. I see my teammates going to their fathers, their parents, they're getting embraced. For me, I have to decide. Let's see, I remember in sixth grade, I was on the Red Raiders Midget League football team, now known as Kids Raiders. I would have to walk from one side of the city back home. And I talk about that journey in my book where, I found out my parents weren't actually on good terms.
Mm.
And then when I was going to middle school, all I had to do was walk 2 blocks from my house. Then in Lancaster, it's more of my mom sometimes would pick me up from the high school and then take me back home during her break, or I would wait at the Conestoga Valley, Conestoga View Nursing Home, which was up on the hill from the high school, and I'll just wait till she gets off of work, and then we go home together. Or there'd be times where sometimes a teammate's mom or parent would take me home, and there's other times where I walked home. Then there's certain times where a coach or two would take me home, depend on their mood after practice and their time period. But eventually, sports took a turn in my life where I talk about in the book, where I wasn't able to do sports the last 3 years of my high school year. And it was devastating. And, I talk about it in the book on, what caused it, who's responsible for it. And, things came in full circle.
Yeah.
But moving forward to, him as an unhigh, it was just, I never had a man ever say that before to me. I'm so used to not hearing and receiving things that became the normal for me.
Yeah. I can see
He
how
started,
that would.
but once he started speaking certain things, that became more okay. This is how a man's supposed to be, not this dysfunctional part. Then there's also the late great Clyde Brown the second. Um, it started my ninth grade year where he was the hall monitor, but he could relate to me a lot. Being a student athlete, he had graduated from Thaddeus Stevens. A lot of the buildings in Lancaster have his mark left on it and his legacy. And he introduced you to his family, and I've been cool with them ever since then. I still, remember all the times we had our big laughs together. A time where he had to lay down the law. And I talk about him in my book as well.
I love that. I love that you had these father figures and these strong, powerful men in your life to be able to give you that example to become who you really are today. So let's go to that day in 2011 when you were in this accident. Can you tell me what you remember about the accident and also the weeks and the months that followed? Can you share that with us, please?
Yeah. But before I start, I just want to tell you that it's a situation like you ever been to a party
Sure.
and you're enjoying the party, you remember the party, the experience. For me, when it comes to my car accident, I was there when it happened, but I don't remember the experience. Only thing I remember is before everything happened.
Okay, so where were you
And it,
coming
it
from?
I was coming from this golfing place at Media Heights, just outside of Lancaster and right next to Lancaster County Park. It was just a matter of helping out Jordan Steffi's, at the time it was called Children of a Chance Foundation. They later rebranded to a Tyler Prep nonprofit organization. Just a fundraiser event for the morning shift, the lunch shift. We see our goals, plenty of pictures were taken, and we had a great time together. We leave, we pick up a couple of my cousins. They were very young. And remember passing the Hess gas station, then there's the Olive Garden, the Tanger outlets on Route 30. And next thing you know, I wake up 2 times,
So before we find out about what happened when you woke up, how many people were in the car when this accident happened?
a grand total of five, including me.
Wow. Wow. And who was driving?
My aunt's fiance.
Okay. And
He was a he,
how old were you at this time?
I believe I was 22.
22 when the car accident happened? Okay. Okay. So you woke up 2 times. What do you remember when you woke up?
The first time I woke up was like on a cloud nine state, all that medicine. So I don't remember that part. The second part, I remember just waking up like, whoa, what am I doing in this hospital? And nobody was telling me anything. Now to go back, I just gotta give like people a sneak peek of you've seen car accidents happen, whether it's on a highway or in your neighborhood. But can you imagine a sedan car hitting an 18-wheeler head on, traffic being backed up 2 miles each way, as people call for the fire department to use the jaws of light to cut the car in half? Can you imagine the ambulance people being called to take people out of the car and put a neck brace on them, then put them on a stretcher? And then it's the police who's gotta put up the yellow tapes, do a police report, take pictures. Then you have the camera people from television, radio, and the newspaper as they see everything unfold. And eventually, I'm facing this mathematical equation of 99% chance of death versus 1% chance of life. And the nearest hospital is 35 minutes away. I should have died. I should have passed away. We shouldn't be having this podcast interview. But here we are. And I don't know what happened. I just know that I wasn't supposed to survive.
Or maybe
And
you were supposed to survive.
I'm not sure what the ambulance people did to me as far as stop the bleeding or whatever. I just know that it was a life traumatic event, whether it's emergency surgery. I was on over 30 prayer lists. And there was a whole lot of uncertainty on whether I would make it or not. There was possibly going to be a call for the coroner and the morgue. And then someone's going to have to identify my body. Someone's going to have to set up funeral arrangements, burial, my obituary. All that got put on hold for now. And yeah, so basically, when I wake up, I look around, nobody's telling me anything. It's not till 2 days later someone tells me the car accident happened. I felt like, okay, you're telling me this, but I don't feel it because my body's five senses were desensitized since I was on so many medicines, coping with a concussion, sensitive to light, and then losing so much blood, then I'm thin as a pin. And then I got IVs in both my arms. Then they had these tubes inside my chest, over where the rib cages are. And then there's just me looking at this newspaper, looking around like, what did I get myself into? I'm just saying that now. And it's just a situation where not many people come back from that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Was there anybody else in the car that was hurt to the extent that you
Yeah,
were?
unfortunately, two people passed away, two people survived.
Wow. Wow. And so when you woke up and you were told about this accident where two people lost their lives and you were expected to, but you didn't, were there any specific things that went through your mind or things that people told you that stand out to you?
I wasn't able to make that funeral because I just wasn't in no condition to pay my respects. And I thought I was the only person who suffered, but once they delivered that news, like I'm like, whoa. And it's like to see somebody the last time in that type of situation, it's like they were just with me. I was just with them. And I was able to pay my respect to one person because I was able to identify their burial site. The other person, I don't know where their burial site is to this day. I just know that, everyone has a dash and there's things that we'll always be remembered for. And right now, part of my dash is being remembered as a survivor, a thriver, overcomer from victim to victor.
Yes.
And it's just the long journey of rehab, being on a feeding tube for several months, the uncertainty about ever eat or drink again. Then there's people singing poems and certain church songs, keeping me motivated, then letters. And it was quite a journey. I don't wish on anybody.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely not. And yet there were people, actually, the majority of the medical staff that never thought you would open your eyes. What was their expression or how did they act when you opened your eyes?
I always tell one woman who was part of the operating table team, like once they got done the surgery, they thought I died. So they had to, sedate me and just see if I wake up. And then one day when I did wake up, she is at the front door and crying tears of joy, like he made it. She went from crying tears of sadness to tears of joy in a way that relieves her to the point where that's the day I was declared a walking living miracle.
Yeah, most definitely. most definitely. Was your mom there with you throughout all this?
She was there as far as visiting the hospital, the rehab. I was at her home. There's more to the journey that I talk about the whole truth about it. Like, for example, it's like when you're in the hospital in such a vulnerable state, everyone's on their best behavior. I never seen so many people make time for me. I never seen so many people actually pick up my phone call.
Mm.
I never seen so many people continue to put me on their prayer list. And unfortunately, there's more to the journey of my story. Even though I overcame the car accident, it involves some serious horrific stuff. And when a person gets a chance to read it, whether it's on a hardcover, softcover, ebook, or listen to it on a new release audio version on Amazon, Audible, Google Audiobooks, Barnes and Noble Audiobooks, Apple and iTunes Audiobooks. Then there's iTunes and all major platforms around the world. You get to hear my own voice from beginning, middle, and end. You get to hear the whole truth about what else took part of the recovery besides getting uh checked out of a hospital, getting checked out of a rehab, and getting something pulled out of my stomach, such as a eating tube. You get to understand the backstory of things.
Yeah. Because I can only imagine, I mean, exactly what you went through and everything that had to happen for you to be here talking with me today. And I am so grateful to God that He pulled you through because He's got a great calling on your life, Ethan. He's definitely given you some responsibility, being that example and talking with children and youth and young boys that are going through the same things that you've gone through. But before we talk about all of that, let's talk a little bit more about the recovery and what it took, and even just I can only imagine the thoughts that you had to go through your head of why did I survive and those other two die? Did you ever have that thought? And how did that play with your mental health? And I mean, I'm sure mental health was a big deal in your recovery.
And when I found out they passed away, just normally, when someone gets told they die, they grieve, cry, go through that whole process. For me, I didn't have a chance to go through that. It wasn't until I got desensitized off all the medicines where they start weaning me off, and I realized, whoa, I survived all this. And it's like all this stuff that was like wasn't addressed came up in ways like I'm like, what's going on with me? In a way of why am I feeling this way on the inside? Why my emotions like a wave? People don't really notice about me. And it wasn't until I got interviewed by this newspaper, and the keyword that stood out was survivor's remorse. And that highlighted everything like, oh, I feel bad for surviving the car accident, surviving the rehab, eating again, and all this other stuff. And I'm like, whoa, I wish I would have been told this stuff much sooner. Then I would have recovered much faster mentally in a sense of things wouldn't have been dragged out. But when I found out that piece, it just felt like that explains why I'm going through this emotion. And eventually I realized I can relate to a lot of people with survivor's remorse, whether it's a parent burying their adult child or grandchild, someone burying a loved one, someone of leadership. Survivor remorse comes in many different ways. Even people in the military deal with that. They're dealing with survivor's remorse in the sense of my buddy's gone, but yet the bullet took them out or whatever caused them. And it just gave me a new sense of reality of like, wow, I'm not the only person who went through survivor's remorse. The mental health aspect was just like when I started getting weed out that medicine, my body's five senses just started coming back. I had to relearn how to talk again, walk again, and all this other stuff. It was quite a journey to like go from I can pick up these grocery bags to now I'm struggling to pick up a bean bag. And that's less than 5 ounces. But I think that people in the rehab and the people who came to my house with the occupational therapy, speech therapy, and everything else, it was quite a journey that very few people don't become addicted to opioids. One of the big situations I realized, and I still remember to this day, was when I got my MRI done in my brain. It showed, healing blood. The biggest thing that really standing out was from the doctor's standpoint. When he looked at the car accident scene of the newspaper from his not his television screen, his computer screen, and looking at me, then look at the MRI, called in the staff, told him, look at me, look at this car, look at this MRI. He don't have no PSD, no post-traumatic stress disorder. I didn't understand what that meant until I researched and I realized most people who serve in law enforcement, ambulance, fire department, the military, go through that stuff and get, the right resources and treatment for that. I didn't go through that. There's no me waking up in the middle of the night like I'll jokingly say, hey, it's time for a midnight snack. But the serious part is, whoa, I remember that car accident. Why that? Why am I still remembering that? I never experienced that. Maybe it's because of concussion. But eventually I did have to face my reality, researching it, which was part of the journey of self-discovery of writing my book and speaking my own story. Just looking at that car accident, just cut in half, all that traffic, then look at the news coverage, whether it's on television, newspaper, and listen to the radio segments, and just listen to other people talk from the outside looking in opinions. Just really helped me understand this was significant and it was bigger than spilled milk.
Most definitely. Most definitely. It was a miracle. And I truly believe, and my audience knows that I am a God girl. I believe that you were protected, that God protected you and he protected your mind from that post-traumatic experience that you could have had if you remembered the actual accident. I think that you've been protected this whole way. And so I would love to hear what you think has been the greatest challenge in your recovery, and what it's been like.
There's a lot of things I can say. First off, be careful who is in your inner circle because not everyone's looking out for your best interests. Because when you win a football game or a basketball game, you have a crowd of people cheering you on. But when you lose, you'll see the few that want to walk on you and tell you keep your head up. And part of my recovery journey was outside of recovering from the mental. It's just two people in particular who I thought were going to change, help me a lot on the journey, and it was the complete opposite. It was more like someone set me up for failure. And again, it goes back to the foundation two people stand on as parents. Hint, hint. And it's just, not much change, but I also realize I can't make people do right by me. But I can set up boundaries. I can set up a different way of outlining looking at things. Like my story can refer to the homeless to Harvard story, where this woman was homeless as a child and teenager. Yes, she was smart enough to get into an Ivy League school that has less than a 20% chance of acceptance rate. Then you look at the pursuit of happiness, where I can relate to that story of experiencing homelessness, eviction, and all this other stuff. Then, of course, there's also the Michael Orr story, where the Blind Side story,
Yeah.
and I can relate. Some of those things relate to me as well, with athletics, education, not having a father, but some people were willing to come in and invest in me, even though I was not their own child biologically or legally, even though I'm not gonna say that part. The other part I was gonna say, the pause and say that things can happen and you never know what could move forward in. But ultimately, those stories have a struggle, an adversity, and resiliency because there is beauty in the struggle where someone can receive beauty for their ashes, beauty for their trauma, beauty for their scars. There's plenty of stories out there that show that people were willing to do what it takes to get their life back, get their freedom back. Unfortunately, there's some people who didn't want it that bad.
Yeah.
And you get to see those who are victims versus victors.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it really does come down to, and right now I'm talking to the tribe, guys. If you're finding yourself in a really difficult spot right now, it has to start with you wanting to change it. You need to have that desire to change where you're at and then making the decision to do something different. Because if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting something different, that's insanity. That's the definition of insanity. You've got to be willing to do something different to be able to change your lives. So I'm so glad that you're sharing all of this, Ethan, because people just need to hear it straight out and boldly from someone that has experienced it, that knows exactly what it feels like to have to do these things and to choose not to be a victim, but to do what it takes to be a victor. So my hat's off to you, my friend. Hats off to you.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. You're welcome. So when we first spoke, you talked about strangers and the part that they played in you being alive. Would you like to expound on the importance of being willing to help people, whether you know them or not?
Yeah, like the fire department, police, ambulance, people calling the cops, and everybody else. Those were complete strangers. I didn't know who they were. Then you look at the people in the medical field, they didn't know who I was. Then you look at the people in the rehab, they didn't know who I was. You look at the people who came to my house unannounced or by appointment. Some of them didn't know who I was, but they knew about the journey. And then you have to look at the aspect of there's times where I helped somebody, I didn't even know them. For example, when I used to work the after school sports program, I remember like it was yesterday, there was this one girl who did this jump in middle school. She was in seventh grade. It was a record. And eventually we became friends. She introduced you to her parents. And it became the start of things. And there's times where at work, some people decide to research me, whether it's a parent or guardian, when I was working the football program, track, wrestling, basketball, more like after school. And sometimes, not that I'm pointing fingers, HR can miss some things. And what ended up happening was people start researching me and they're showing me their cell phone of, is this you from the car accident? I gotta take a deep breath, like, yeah, that's me. Wow, you're here working and you survived that? I didn't understand it that I was inspiration. I did not know. It just happened organically. And eventually I got tired of that attention because I'd rather be focusing more of a present tense and moving forward tense instead of a past tense. Because, like, if I tell you something that happened to me bad one time, you'll feel sorry. If I tell you the second time, you'll be like, okay, I remember. The third time, you might think it's a pity party.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking to do any of that stuff because it's just not what I want to become or became. Eventually, I was able to use that platform to highlight other student athletes, coaches, and leaders. Some of them knew me, some of them did not know me. And there was this new guy running a story on me. He didn't know who I was until I received a proclamation declaration from Lancaster City Council members and Mayor Denise Sarachi. And that became the beginning of more accolades and awards. And then there's also, colleges. When I went to Millersville University and Harrisburg Community College, I felt like it was a safe haven where I could just focus on college work and be myself,
Yeah.
and no attention, no paparazzi. And it wasn't until I made the newspaper and ended up television, these people were like, "What? This guy went through all that, and he still furthered his education not once but twice and crossed the finish line." And it got to the point where I got featured in Harrisburg Area Community College's newsletter. Then I got featured at Mills University's radio station. Then I got featured in the Snapper newspaper of Mills University. Then I received a Special Overcoming Adversity Award from the head department of communication and theater, Dr. Teresa Russell Loretz. She was just amazed. Like, her first impression of me was, here I am as another student, as she helped me choose out my classes. Little did she know, she didn't know I went through all that and still didn't ask for no hardship fund or any special accommodations for mental health. And she was just like, I never experienced this before. And I'm not the person who told her. It was my mentor, a combination of net television and radio, where her eyes really lit up like, whoa.
You know, that's
And
amazing.
then
Seriously. Let's talk about inspiration just really quick, though, okay? Because inspiration, people need to be inspired. And I truly believe that stories save lives. I mean, that's why we have you on here today to help share your story, because I think there's someone that will connect with you in what you've been through. And yet, to inspire someone, it's not just what you say, it's the way that you live your life. Right. And that's what you're saying is that the way that you were living your life wasn't for pity. It wasn't to keep replaying this old story over and over again. It was for you to prove to yourself what you could do and to become the best that you could be. And along the way, other people saw this and figured out it's like, oh my gosh, this guy's pretty cool. He's done some pretty great things after only having 1% chance of living. So I think that you're an inspiration. And I agree that all the crazy, all the flashing lights and all that kind of stuff can grow old and it's not what you want. Yet people can still be inspired just by looking at your life and how far you've come and how you've chosen to approach it and to be victorious. So tell me, I want you to share with me, because you are a CEO, you're the founder of Ethan A. Poetic, LLC. Can you share with us what you do and how you try to be an inspiration to the youth? Because you're so in tune with their hardships because you've been through them.
I used to work for this company in the school district Lancaster where I was working inside the classrooms, the cafe, the playground, and other locations, but I don't do that anymore as of November 2023. It was just a transition point. When I was doing that type of work, I work with kids of all walks of life, from those who are in the normal classroom, pre-K, kindergarten, and kids with special needs, both genders. And they got to experience something that they rarely get to experience, like a person who they get to work with one-on-one, they get to see on television, newspaper, wrote a book, and graduated college twice, and a person who represents diversity and inclusion and doing more than just mean a quota or status quo. And some of these kids may not experience positive interactions with males sometimes, because sometimes their fathers are either in jail, pushed away by, a woman, or maybe that guy who has a child that's in that school may not know how to be a positive person because they may not experience it themselves. And there's some situations where some kids just gravitate towards me immediately because they see how I'm interacting with certain adults. And then their mommy's telling them, you remember I told you about that guy you saw on television? There he is. And then sometimes the kids are like, that's him, mommy? And then run towards me. And I'm in the middle of aisle, whether it's Walmart, Target, and I feel someone grab my leg, and I know I didn't steal anything. I look down and it's a kid, like, okay, I see him. And then I got to introduce myself to the parent, whether they want to talk to me again or not. I always tell them who I am. This is what I do. That's how I know your kid. And they say, oh, yeah, yeah, we've seen you that on television, radio, newspaper. And I show them my book. After that, I go about my life. And there's also some situations where I say this, but I got to tell the truth on your show. Certain adults, whether it be a teacher, a building assistant, will get jealous of me because the kids would see me in the morning time, or if I come in the afternoon time, they just grab up to me. I hear pencils dropping. I hear iPads dropping. Well, good thing they had the case protector. And the teachers sometimes embracing like, yeah, go after him, go after him. Some teachers look at me like, oh wow. And some certain people try to say I'm being a friend to the kid, but you gotta realize that I'm more than a friend to the kid because they look up to me, whether I'm like an icon, childhood idol, there's inspiration,
A
and then there's
mentor.
also feeling in certain things that they may not experience. Someone telling them positive words of affirmation, someone willing to listen to them, meet them where they are, and understanding maybe they want somebody that wants to listen to them. Maybe they want someone to color with them, draw, be on the playground with, because it's rare to have a positive male just in a female dominated uh industry of education. I enjoy my time there. I still miss a lot of kids. I was able to tell, certain administrators, hey, this is the transition point. I'm telling you how to respect in person. Thank you for making this appointment. But moving forward, I still see certain kids at the sporting events and adults.
Yeah, well, you've been a mentor to these children. I mean, sometimes the other teachers or the other adults may have a little bit of jealousy in that, but it's just because you've had that special relationship and you've been able to speak into their lives from your own experience. So, share with us what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned over the past 13 years since that car accident that changed your life forever?
Well, let's see. I started with a serious thing and I'm kind of combined with a joke. Like when I was finally able to eat again, starting off with soft foods and hard foods, people started taking me out to restaurants to eat. And when they took me out, I enjoyed the food. I never saw the check, but I saw beautiful waitresses.
That would be a good experience, huh?
Yeah. But the thing is they never took me to Hooters, so I
Well, that's
missed out on
good,
that.
actually. No, I don't think so. I don't think you missed out at all.
True. Well, that's the
And,
joking part.
I'm not a guy, but, coming from this mom's viewpoint, I don't think you missed out at all. But yes, that was a funny joke. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. But moving forward, the lessons I learned was a lot of patience. Like I learned to be more patient than the man waiting inside the maternity ward for the child to be born. I learned to be resilient in ways where I thought I was already resilient, overcoming the things I overcame in my previous life, but overcoming death is like a situation where not much else can stop you except you stopping yourself.
Right.
And then I realized I'm seeing a different light where certain things an average Joe can get away with, I can't get away with that. And then there's times where when I was working inside, the schools, there's times where I gotta watch what I say, beware who am I around. And then there's times where some teachers allow me to be myself authentically, because I'm not trying to put on this Broadway audition because the kids will see right through the acting jobs because kids were born with their own sense of innocence and intuition. And I'm not trying to, put on no fakeness. Other lessons I learned is just it's not about me, it's about inspiring people.
Amen. Amen. So you mentioned that you were on a lot of prayer lists. What part do you think prayer played in your miraculous recovery?
People speaking words of affirmation, guidance, and wisdom.
Yeah. Well, and words matter. There's the power of life or there's the power of death in
Yep.
words. Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. So tell us a little bit more about your book. And just so the audience knows, we will make sure that we have it on marcynettles.com/books, where you can find the books from my amazing guests on my show. So it'll be a really quick and easy thing to be able to go and find your book, The Inspirational Story of Ethan A. Poetic, Chronicles of Adversity, Adversities, Education, Sports, Relationships, and Resiliency. What is, if you could only tell us one more thing about your book, what would it be?
8 forwards, 2 back cover reviews, self-published author.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And then, of course, your life story, the inspiration of what you've been through, how you chose to become that victor, and how you have moved forward in the desire to inspire others. I love that.
Yeah, it happens. My website is eathandspeaks.com.
Fantastic. And I'll make sure that we've got that on the show notes as well as when we advertise for this episode. Not to mention, What Now Tribe? We've got an amazing freebie from Ethan. He's actually offering you a free gift of several of his videos from his journey, as well as a sneak peek of Ethan reading chapter 1 of his audiobook. So I'm super excited to get you connected to that. Just go to marcynettles.com/freebies. That's marcynettles.com/freebies and ask for the freebie from Ethan's episode so that I can get that over to you so that you can check it out. And then, of course, you're going to want to go and purchase his book, and you can find that at marcynettles.com/books. So, Ethan, what would be your final words that you would like to share with the What Now tribe?
Always believe in yourself, have the right people around you, and don't invest more than you can afford to lose. And my website is eathandspeaks.com for serious inquiries on my books. And there's also keynote speaking at your schools, colleges, or special events. I value my time, my services, and my products. The best is yet to come. And I look
Amen.
forward to seeing what is more to come as time goes by.
Absolutely, because you are still a young man. You've got many years ahead of you to do so much more good. So I'm looking forward to that. But Ethan, thank you so much for being my guest today. I appreciate you sharing your story, and I look forward to seeing where you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.